Hi folks, it's one of the last days of fall. I would actually call this take two because I was here first thing in the morning today uh, to shoot a bit of the different side of the property on the north side of the homestead, and for the second time this thing didn't shoot any videos. I mean, I was here for an hour shooting, unbeknownst to me that it wasn't even recording. And this is the second time it did this to me. First time was yesterday. Look at this thing just hanging in midair by a tiny bit of a spider web that is. I can see it now that I said it. Maybe you can too. It's almost like life. It's something that's previously. Oh, where did that? Oh, there it is. Something that is previously invisible to you, but it's actually there. But we're not tuned into it. If you believe in that sort of thing, like different dimensions that we need to fine tune to before we can actually see it. So I will take you to the north side, and periodically I'll check to see if this thing is actually recording. So I don't look like an idiot holding a camera that's not doing anything. That is the south side. This is our neighbor's property. And that is the north side. You can see there's a cloud over that mountain that's about 1,000 or 2,000 or 2,000 feet above us. And that's not even the highest elevation in the province. As high elevation as we are here, that's another 2,000. I think it can go another 1,000 or 2 feet above that. Let's test to see if this is recorded. Actually, no, wait, no, we'll just keep recording. Yeah, so you're here with your off-grid homesteader in Canada on this glorious, glorious, part sunny day in late September, one of my favorite months. I'm trying not to walk on the fallen leaves so you can actually hear the sound of a forest, nature, maybe a bit of a breeze as it goes through the last remaining leaves. Wow, the sun is really intense when it hits you because these are the days that there's no smog. Not that we have smog where we live, but I remember these days. These are particularly with the high UV days, particularly clear days where the sun just pierces through your skin. the intersection now of the neighborhood, and this is we're at the very core of the neighborhood. This is if for people that want to live here, this is actually the most desirable part of the neighborhood because, like I said, we're at the core, and means that everybody has to go pretty much. This is the center. If they're here for the school, and I will maybe try to show the school to you when I go in, or whether they want to see their friends that live on this street to my left, or there's people that live on the street to my right, or people that live on the north side. They all have to pretty much come this way to get to one another's houses. But by being in the very center, very core, then they don't have to drive. They can either bike or just walk. This morning I was saying that. Oh, let me check, see if it's recording. 1 moment, please. Okay, I just checked. It seems to be recording, but I just have to check periodically. Where I'm standing at this very corner of the very core of at the very core of the neighborhood community, and I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 apple trees, and I would say that they are too close to one another. They should be a good 10, if not 20 feet apart, just like any other tree. And I do prune these because they're not supposed to be going up. As you can see, they're going up now. They should be more like this one here, going out rather than up. How high? I would say no more than maybe 10, 15 feet up. And but the trunk needs to get thicker and thicker. And as I'll show you, there's one over there that's the thickest of the 5 that's here. And when you have too many trees, fruit, any tree, but in this particular case, fruit trees so close together, you're limiting the amount of sunlight that each branch, each fruit, each bud needs to get, and also the flow of air. But what's not really good here is where, as I'm standing, if you can count with me, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 evergreens, spruces in particular, mostly spruces, where there should be actually none. And as they get bigger and bigger, they're going to limit the flow of air, definitely, and also sunlight. Before I go closer to those apple trees, I just wanted to show you where I was standing, where my footsteps are. You can see an imprint of it. That's how cushy this patch of moss is. Insane. It's about 3 inches thick, and it's so cushy that me just standing there for less than 5 minutes, I put an indentation there of my footprint. So now walking towards these apple trees, and these are wild, which are brilliant for, look at the step that I just took. Wild because, and they're brilliant for making cider, apple cider. Now, if you go at this time of year, October, November, maybe even December, no, not December, to the store and buy apple cider, regular apple cider, you'll notice that a jug of it, decent sized jug of it, costs maybe half as much as a cider vinegar would. Now, mind you, cider vinegar's process is longer. It's more than just pressing it. You have to add sugar to it and let it sit for it to turn into apple cider. But nonetheless, it costs a lot more than apple cider does. Here's a mushroom that's either died or it's just a different kind of mushroom. I'm not sure. I don't know my mushroom, so I don't want to touch it. So apple trees need a lot of pruning, and this is too bushy, way too bushy. I would say a good 50% of the branches that are there should not be there. If you have your own and you want to know how to prune them, for instance, you don't really want branches that go down, because if they're already going down and without any fruit or apples hanging from it, how much bend are they going to have after? You also don't want too many, like this one here. It's too close to all those other ones. When they have in their full glory, they're going to cast a shadow and the air movement is less. You also don't want them to go in, like towards the bark the trunk of a tree, because this what's you want them to come out. What's really there? There's just more congestion. This one here getting close to that one shouldn't be, because they're gonna run into each other. This one here going up and towards the main branch, not good. I don't mind doing this. I can prune all day long. I love it, and anyone with ADHD, which I don't like the, the term, but I'll tell you what I've come up with to replace the acronym with. But anyway, this gives you a purpose and a way to calm your thoughts, the chatter in your head, concentration. You're concentrating on one branch at a time. It's brilliant. It's really nature's way of calming you down. So if I take you here, you'll see there are branches that are going. There's 3 branches that are going to the left. Neither of those should really be here, because eventually under its own weight it's going to fall down. Not to mention if there's any snow or wind or whatever. So it should only be the one on the right standing. Plus it's encroaching on this other tree to its left. So really shouldn't be there. Don't feel bad about pruning apple trees. When you dry them, they're brilliant to smoke if you're smoking anything. You can even buy dry what do you call it? Mulched fruit bark, I guess, or chips. There are a lot, as you can see, there are a lot of trees growing here. It shouldn't be, just too congested. Another apple tree that is needs a lot of pruning, but I can only do 20%, as I mentioned earlier, each year, without killing it. Here is a hawthorn. I don't want to say tree, because it's not a tree. It's more of a bush, but it's a big bush. I'm doing a walk around, and notice how it's the striation, the bark is turning, just rotating and rotating. Now, those of you who are religious, or maybe not even not religious, but you've seen pictures of Jesus with this thorny crown on his head. I'm pretty sure this is it. And these thorns are so long and so hard. If you can see this one, can you see it? This can puncture your car's tire. When it punctures, it stings for a long time. Now, I believe, I'm not mistaken, this was used, the red berries of it, to ward off evil, or stink eye, or whatever, evil eye. People would leave close to their front door. This is like a different way of a feng shui, if you will. Some mushrooms. There's a lot of moss here, but look at those beautiful tiny little mushrooms there. It looks like buttons. Maybe this one's closer, you can see this one better. I don't know if this thing can focus there. But there it is. Um, let's keep walking. See, it's two apple trees growing very close together. And these all most of these, there's about 50 or 60 apple trees in this patch where I'm standing, and most of them are I don't know if I can say volunteers. They're thanks to bears or deer or whatever that would eat them, and then when they poop, the seeds come out with their poop, and that becomes a beautiful little package for them to grow into. You got your compost, you got your nutrients, and you got uh, transportation. I don't know if you know, but um, the most important part of a fruit tree, any fruit tree, is not its fruit. It's its seed. That say we're talking about apple trees, so let's stay with apple trees. That apple that you see, that's just a transportation method for the tree to get its seeds uh, transported somewhere. That's all. Isn't that fascinating? So I was just standing here. Just wanted to show you. I don't know if you can see the indentations that I put in this beautiful, soft, very, very cushy moss. Love it. It's like a really plush, 3-inch thick carpet. It feels like that. I'm walking, and it feels like I'm walking on a cloud. So look, this is how I've been training this tree. You can see how, I mean, a lot's grown in the past month and a half that I left it alone. You can see how um, it already has some shape to it, as opposed to the ones behind me. Other than a few that are suckers that are just popping up, which I got to get rid of, and particularly in the center. And this it really shouldn't be higher than this. This is about 10, 12 feet tall. What you want is to get the trunk as wide as you can, so it can have deeper roots, it can have more solid roots, it can be able to get water even on drier days. So like I was saying before in one of my previous videos, that this was not a good year for apple trees, and you can see there's some on the ground here, and this is actually a very good producing tree. And if you can look up and you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, unless I missed one, 8 apples there, and you see how they're together, not in a cluster. That's exactly what you want. Took me a long time to train them like that. What you don't want is a lot of branches. You want, if you can have 1 or 2 apples on a branch, that's pretty much all you want. Otherwise, you're going to have many, many little apples that none of them are going to amount to anything. Because remember, at the core of it, you don't eat the core, you don't eat the seeds, and what you want is one big apple by itself on a branch, maybe 2 or maybe 3, but not in clusters, not a lot of them. So I'm happy about, I'm proud of this particular, how I managed to do this. But then there's many evergreens growing all around it. 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 evergreens are growing all around it, and there shouldn't be any. I'm a tree hugger, so I have a hard time. I have a hard time removing trees, cutting trees down, but you have to decide what it is that you're doing. If you have an apple orchard, you can't have any of these things around it. Now we have 60 apple trees. We can't have 60 apple trees and 500 or 400 other trees all around it to take away, to have to share the nutrients, the water, the air, the air movement, the sunlight, you know. Here we have 2 stands of pussy willows, and actually 3 stands. There's one to my right. As you can see, I've trained them to not have branches or leaves down below. So we can actually walk through here, this area. but also because when they get top to the top, they can have a bit of a canopy of a shade in the summertime. Because even though we're in a colder zone, summers here are 3 months long, and they can get hot up in the mountain. Um, so shade is welcome, especially if it's a drier year. So the more you can stop the sunlight from hitting the forest floor, the more water retention, moisture retention for the roots. And here, even though this particular patch has a good 2-3 inch thick moss, that can dry up eventually too. Um, anyway, so this sort of a shoot, they're not, willow's not really a tree, it's more like canes or bushes. What these are brilliant for is in the ye old England, in the Renaissance time, and even today, they make fences out of these. So when they're still fresh, and even now they still have the leaves, so I guess they're still considered fresh. You cut them and you weave them into each other. It's like making a wicker basket. Only instead of being round, or they could be round, but they make them in panels that are like walls, straight. Oh, they could be 3 feet by 3 feet long by maybe 3 feet tall, or it could be an actual wall, like 6 feet tall, 7 feet tall, and people would use that for their pig pens, or enclosure for their animals, or even like a little storage shed attached to their homes. And then, like, if you want to call it woodshed, and they're actually beautiful. You've seen these if you've ever seen any of the medieval shows or whatever. This is what they use to make fences, and also walls out of. So I'm keeping these up instead of cutting them down, so that I could use them for something one day. They can also be used for making furniture. If you've ever seen those rustic log furniture, they make them out of willows, but in particular out of, this is what I'm about to show you now. This is called alder. Alder usually goes in more wet grounds. It's very light, and when it's dry, it's fairly dry. But more than anything, it's super light. You can burn it. When you cross-cut it, you can see orange. It's a beautiful shade of orange. I don't think I've seen that on any other tree or bush or whatever this is. And it can burn really hot. So by hot, I mean if you have a quick stove, wood stove with a like a 1/2 inch or whatever thick stainless steel top, it can bend it. Of course, it doesn't last long, whereas if it did, that would be the ideal firewood choice, because they grow fast. Now, it is ideal firewood choice if you have if you know what a rocket mass heater is, because the openings are small, and it can take little wood, and it radiates heat. That's a story for another day. That's one of those options that take forever to build, and they take a lot of space. But if you have the energy, the manpower, the will to do it, and the space, that is what I recommend as your heat source than anything else. I was here earlier today, like I said, shooting a video that was never shot, and I saw 2 mushrooms that I thought at first were dead animals, because I'd never seen anything like them before. And I'm just looking to see. I'm walking on this super cushy grounds, and I'll make an attempt to find it, because I was so fascinated by them, and I went on, and I would like to find them again if I can. Oh, I found them! Okay. So you wouldn't be able to walk anywhere where I'm walking now had I not weed whacked or gotten down on my hands and knees and cut all these canes and shoots and whatever. And they keep coming back. Every time it rains, it poof right up. Now check this out. these two mushrooms were something, and in the morning they looked different. They had the spores. You can't see or tell, and I'm guessing this is a morning thing. That you can still see a little bit, but that's little white little um, net-like structures that you see. That was 10 times as much and as big in the morning. I'm not sure why they do it in the morning that way. Maybe because they can release them better in the morning. Maybe moisture is better. Maybe it's trying to. I don't know. I can smell them actually. So let's leave that alone. Um, Here I'm trying to make what I call a sort of a poor man's boulevard. So by making these willows and alders and pin cherries on the two sides of a sort of a walkway, and they go up. They provide shade, and yet there's a walkway that's straight away next to the road. By the way, that structure with the red roof and solar panels on it, that's the forest school, art nature school, that is going to be hosting a fall fair in a week or two, and I will take you there. I wonder if that's the sumac. I hope it is. I will take you there for a quick tour of, musicians come. It's just a regular fair. Musicians come. Maybe they have hay rides, apple cider press demonstrations. Um, you know what this is? I think you see a hint of it. If you said an anthill, you are correct. Big. It's about a foot off the ground. So they moved. You just imagine what's under that mound. I wouldn't disturb it, but um, the complex structure that they've made in there, both for heating and cooling, and their larvae, and larvae, eggs, all of that is in there. So, walking still west, early direction. I just noticed an apple tree that the main branch has died, and the new ones from the sort of like the coppicing I was talking about in other videos, they're trying to grow because the root's fine. Just the main. Oh, just a minute. What was I saying? These are some of the biggest and tallest and most prolific part of the homestead with the ferns, which I love. That sound you hear. Okay, folks, we're going back into the woods towards the center of the property. So these baby trees that you see, so they're bigger than seedlings and saplings and whatever. They're maybe a foot or two or three or four tall, and I try to either sell or give them away to city folks that want to replace at least some of their lawns with trees. Not to put the nurseries out of business. I mean, they can even come and get them from me or pay very little because, like I said, I can't really use them. I don't really need them here. There's so many, and they're impeding the growth of other things. Like that apple tree straight ahead has, look at it, it's got a forest around it. That one apple tree and maybe 60 evergreens all around it. Poor thing. How do you want it to grow? So I leave when I cut down these branches, as you can see here, I leave them around like there for my frost wall, and then that becomes habitat. But also, if anybody ever wants to climb here, or when we make survival shelters, and you can lean them on trees, and the branches are here to burn if needed. That's a blue jay. If this little camera can pick up the sound. See what I mean about ladder? It becomes a ladder. And look how long each branch and coming out of a tree is. They're about 12 feet long, and they cast quite a bit of a shadow on everything around it. These little things, even, which I don't really need, are growing, having a hard time catching a bit of a sunshine. Never mind the apple tree there. And but I can't really reach those high ones. And I don't want to drag a ladder so far away from the main building. I mean, it's not just the ladder, it's the saw and your water bottle. Because when I come out in the springtime, I'm out for maybe hours for the entire day, maybe 8 hours, 10 hours. And okay, so this is, if I'm not mistaken, my daughter's tree. She climbs up, 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 up. And she should have a board that she sits on way up top. Maybe this isn't the tree. Yeah, I was thinking. Oh, there it is. There's the board right there. Straight ahead. Maybe, and see it? It goes all the way up there and sits there to meditate. What a place to be to meditate. You should just sit, basically just plainly sit under this tree with about a 4-foot diameter. I mean, the stories that this thing could tell, would tell if it could. Look at this beautiful moss. Let's not step on it. Sorry, moss, we'll go around you. Oh, there's that witch's broom that I've talked about in other videos. This is one that's attached to the tree already. But in the springtime, I'll show you a live one. This one's died. They're really magical and whimsical. Now, here's something that I want to show you, and I've shown it to you before. This tree, as you can see, the bark is on it, and then it's off of it, and then it's on it, and it's off of it, on and off and off and on, all the way down. So this is what porcupines like to eat, whatever's in it, the salt or whatever. And as they chew and strip away the bark, they kill it. And well, I mean, we can use it for many things, but I'm just saying, when you see these sort of whimsical things, something's done it and you can use it. But here's something else that's whimsical. Worms have been making these labyrinths patterns, and when you see woodpeckers, maybe they're looking for the larvae of these worms. How deep is it? Let me see if I can show you. Oh, it's like somebody carved this out like a router. It's about it's deep enough that I can, if you had a puzzle at home, it would be half that depth. Everything takes so long because you have to go cut it, drag it over to one area, because you can't just dump it where it is. I mean, you can, and I have before when I'm in quite a bit of a hurry or tired. But then you have to shape it into what you want. So my idea was that if the walls could be 3, maybe even 4 feet thick, then it will be fairly rain and waterproof. And then you have a fire pit in the center of it. And for the roof, those of you who know about bushcrafts and whatever, you know how you can make the roof even waterproof and watertight. But I don't have the human resources and obviously the financial means to hire people to come and build these whimsical structures. And it's more than that. When people here, some people make their uh, unconventional builds, and they ask for volunteers, and volunteers do come, but they forget that, well, these volunteers that are here now, you have to feed them, you have to house them, you have to have bathrooms for them, you have to have showers for them. They're out working for you hard, and so, you might see videos and shows on TV where like 100 people are doing this build, be it cob, rammed earth, straw bale, whatever, and it's all very happy and joyful and happy, happy, joy, joy. But let's not let's not forget the logistics of it. How are you gonna do? How do you gonna make sure they're happy? And that's the thing. You either have to pay them, or if somebody has to cook. There's a lot of meals that needs to be cooked. I mean, they're doing a lot of work, and they're going to need a lot of calories. And a lot of them, if they're younger, they probably eat even more. Anyway, I may have shown this before. A aspen poplar was once forced to grow. I mean, something must have fallen on it. Was once forced to grow sideways, and then it corrected itself. But in doing so, actually the tree looks like it did fall. That's the base of it. That's the trunk of it. And then from there, it grew up and up and up. It trained itself to go up into three trees. And I see a sort of a crack or fracture there. And that is for this big main trunk that could come down. And when it comes down, it looks like it's leaning to my right. It's gonna fall down. But it's amazing to think a big tree like that, a big tree, is growing out of a fallen tree. This was a branch that turned into a tree, a big tree of its own. Here's one of the biggest apple trees that we have on the homestead. And this is just majestic. It really shouldn't be this size, but now I can't do anything with it. I mean, I can graft it, but this just you just have to pay respect to it, because it's 40 feet tall, and the diameter at the very base, depending on if you count the one tree or two tree that is divided into, about more over 3 feet in diameter. And so this, when it produces apples, it produces a lot, and that could be to provide the forest with nutrients, the deer, the whatever, everything that wants that apple. Not one apple, but I mean, it would be a lot of apples. And yeah, it's a sight to see when this thing blooms, because it's very established, as you can see. Let's just go closer. I can show you. Put my hand on it. You can see by comparison. The perspective down here. So you see, now my understanding is that chickadees that don't leave the area, they stay here for the winter. They come and hide. They lift the bark and hide their seeds or whatever under it, and then push the bark back down. And they do this to about 3,000 locations, and they remember each one for those lean, cold days of winter. Amazing, isn't it? And all they're trying to grow. And this is, if you look at those stick furniture, Actually, this isn't. Is this alder? No, this isn't alder. This is pin cherry. It also has a beautiful. Yes, it's definitely pin cherry. Beautiful bark. The alder. Let me show you an alder. That's what they make the Oh, let me just show you what. Because there are different kinds of maples. You know, there's like red maple. There's regular maple. There's sugar maple. That's what you make the maple syrup out of. And look at this. If this isn't a work of art, I don't know what is. So I don't exactly know how this happened. I can speculate, and I may or may not be right, but it's very gnarly, but it's very hard, and this is what people tap into. Maybe not this particular tree to get um, maple syrup out of. I don't really want to do that because it's for me. I wonder, and I may be wrong, that I may be torturing the poor tree. And because every year you go in a different spot from the year before, and then you have to plug it after the sap is done running. And then the process of making maple syrup, you have to heat this liquid that you get out, sort of a maple flavored liquid, and then I don't know if it's 40 time. Anyway, you have to heat it an insane amount of time to make it to the consistency that you see at the store. So it takes a lot of resources. Um, and if it was up to me, I'd rather save these trees for a time where, I mean, you see in people's videos and on TV or whatever, that these survivalists, that how to filter water and things of that nature. Well, if you've ever had maple water, it has a very slight hint of maple flavor to it, like maple syrup, and the tree has done the work of filtering for you. All you have to do is tap into it if you have to. And if I ever have to use, it's a pin cherry and a maple tree growing inches away from each other, and if you ever have to tap into it, if I ever have to tap into it, I wouldn't make maple syrup out of it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so there are a lot of burdocks here. Burdocks are what attach themselves to you, and that's how they get transported. But they're not useless. They're roots. In fact, they're one of the best for a liver detox. The roots and other parts. So now this is a alder that I was trying to tell you in a more wet areas.